In this video, we'll go over the additional features found in CueMix Pro. CueMix Pro communicates directly with your 16A or other compatible Mode 2 interface. So make sure your device is connected to your computer and powered on for this video. Now, launch CueMix Pro. As discussed in the last video, the Discovery tab displays a picture of your Mode 2 interface. Click it to select it. Anything you change in CueMix Pro will change on the interface. If you have other compatible Mode 2 interfaces connected, you'll also see them in the list, where you can click them to control their settings as well. If you have earlier generation Mode 2 AVB interfaces available on your local network, or even third-party AVB devices, you'll see them over here in the sidebar, where you can click them to control their basic settings in CueMix Pro. Once you've selected your Mode 2 interface, click the Home tab for quick access to basic controls. Anything you change in CueMix Pro will change on the interface. For example, you can adjust output volume for the monitor group and headphones. The Source menu lets you choose which signal to listen to on the headphone output. By default, it follows the 16A's monitor mix, which we'll explain later in this video. The monitor group represents the 16A's 16 analog outputs. If you have multiple monitors in your studio, add their outputs here. Now you can control them with the monitor volume control or the main volume knob on the front panel. Next, we have the Presets section. This section lets you save, recall, and erase presets in the 16A's 8 preset slots, which are saved in the device itself and recallable from here or on the front panel menu. You can also save and recall an unlimited number of presets to and from your computer's hard drive. Finally, we have TalkBack. TalkBack allows you to temporarily dim or mute all audio and talk with musicians during a recording session. After connecting a TalkBack mic to any analog input, choose the desired outputs for the TalkBack signal and then click Talk to engage TalkBack. You can control the TalkBack level and how much other channels are dimmed while talk is engaged. In the Device tab, you'll find some common device settings. Click here to rename your device. This name appears throughout CueMix Pro and on your local network when viewing the unit from other devices on the network. If you're operating the 16A by itself, leave the clock source set to internal. Other settings allow you to resolve the 16A with other devices connected by word clock, optical, or network. The green lock icon indicates successful connection to the clock source. Red indicates that the 16A is not yet locked. The word clock input and output on the 16A are used to sync it digitally with other devices to eliminate drift between them and to prevent noise in the digital audio signals passed between them. If the 16A is the clock master device, meaning that it is operating with its internal clock setting and other devices are resolving to the 16A, set this to out. If you are daisy chaining several word clock devices and the 16A is in the middle of the daisy chain, set this to thru. When you enable the Become AVB Media Clock Reference button, other devices on the AVB network automatically resolve to this 16A, so that their clocks are in sync for clean audio streams across the network with no clicks or pops. The AVB Input Streams section is where you connect the 16A to AVB network audio streams from other devices on the network. Choose the device from the Source Device menu, and then choose the desired source stream. Now, the 16A will receive audio from the other device on this input stream. Later in this video, we'll show you how to use the Patchbay to route the incoming audio stream to destinations in the 16A, such as the host computer or analog outputs. Scroll down to view the AVB output streams. These are AVB streams that the 16A is broadcasting to other devices on the network. Here, you can configure the number of channels per stream and specify the stream format, which may be required by the other devices you are transmitting to. For the new 16A or similar generation devices, either format works fine. For legacy Mode 2 AVB interfaces, such as the 1248 or other third-party AVB devices, use the AM8-24 format. For third-party AVB devices that are Milan compatible, use the AAF PCM format. The Inputs tab allows you to boost the signal level of any analog input on your device by as much as plus 20 dB. You can also flip the phase for each analog input. In the optical section, you can monitor your optical input levels. By default, the 16A uses the 8-channel ADAT optical format for both A and B optical banks. On bank A, you can optionally change the format to stereo toslink by clicking here. Note that this setting for bank A input is independent of the format for bank A output. The Outputs tab provides controls for the 16A outputs. The Monitor section provides controls for the analog outputs. This dial controls the overall volume for the monitor group. From the factory, the monitor group includes lineouts 1 and 2. If you wish to add additional analog outputs to the group, click their monitor group buttons below. This allows you to control a subchannel or surround speakers with the main volume control. Next to that, you can enable ABC monitoring. This option lets you quickly check your mixes on 2 or 3 sets of studio monitors, A, B, and C, connected to line outputs 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 5 and 6 respectively. When enabled, the monitor group is temporarily disabled, and the ABC buttons select which output to monitor. To the right, you have controls for the headphone output. You can control its volume, just as if you're turning the knob on the front panel, and you can also choose any source signal. In the Source menu, you can choose a specific input or output, the 16A's monitor mix, or the signal routed to the headphone output in the Patchbay tab. If you just want to hear the main mix, which is usually routed to your main studio monitors, choose the monitor mix, which follows the main mix. Below the headphones section are the line output controls. The 16A analog outputs deliver a max level of plus 21 dBu. This section lets you trim or cut the output level of any analog output. And just like the Inputs tab, you can monitor your optical outputs here. Also notice that the optical bank A out can be configured independently from the bank A in, which we saw earlier in the Inputs tab, for either 8-channel ADAT or stereo toslink. In the Patchbay tab, you can route audio from any source to any destination. You have sources on the left, destinations on the right, and the Patchbay in the middle with patch cords. In the left-hand panel, sources are presented in 4 different banks. The device bank shows the physical inputs on the 16A device itself, including the 16 line inputs and both banks of optical input. Next are the mixer bus outputs, including the main mix, monitor mix, the 26 aux buses, the reverb bus, and the post-effects outputs from the mixer's 64 channels. Next are the 16 AVB input streams. These are the AVB streams coming into the 16A from other devices on the network. Each stream can have up to 8 channels for a total of 128 network channels. Finally, there are the 128 channels coming from the host computer over USB or Thunderbolt. These are the channels you use for output from your DAW or other host audio software. Notice that each type of connection is color-coded. The right-hand panel shows destination banks with the same color coding. The device bank shows 16A outputs, including the 16 line outputs, both banks of optical output, and the headphones. The mixer bank shows the 64 mixer input channels. The network bank shows the 16A's 16 AVB output streams, which the 16A broadcasts to the network. Finally, the host bank shows the 128 channels going to the computer over USB or Thunderbolt. These are the channels used for input to your DAW or other host audio software. Each individual source or destination channel shows what it is connected to. For example, see here that line input 1 is being routed to host in 1 and mixer channel 17. To break a connection, just select it and hit the delete key. To make a new connection, just drag the patch cord. You can also work with multiple connections at the same time. Here, I'm dragging over all 16 line input connections to select them, and now I'll delete them. If I want to make a stereo connection, just drag over the patch cords before connecting them. There's also multiple undo. If I want to drag 3 or more connections, I can use a similar gesture. Or I can use the double plug bank cable to connect the entire bank in one gesture. Be sure to watch the Patchbay video later in this series for more tips on using the Patchbay. The routing tab is another way of looking at the connections in your 16A interface. Similar to the Patchbay, it shows sources across the top of the grid and destinations down the right side. Connections are made by clicking boxes on the grid. For example, if I wanted to route line input 9 to optical bank A output 1, I would click this box on the grid. Source banks can be collapsed or expanded. The same goes for destination banks. You can scroll the grid to see everything. Here, you can see that all 16A analog and optical inputs are being routed to the host computer. If I collapse the host inputs bank, I can still see that there are connections on the grid. Notice that the destinations column shows the current source for quick side-by-side reference. If a destination has no current source, this column will be blank. Note also that all sources have level meters, which provide crucial feedback for signal flow while working with the grid. Now is a good time to review some of the connections in the factory default preset for the 16A, which will help you understand how audio is routed within the device. The factory default patch employs the 16A's mixer for basic audio interface functionality combined with basic monitoring. Here, you can see that the host out channels 1 through 16 are routed to the mixer inputs 1 through 16. In turn, you can see that the mixer's main mix bus is routed to line outs 1 and 2. This means that anything you play from your DAW over host channels 1 through 16 will be heard on line outs 1 and 2. Similarly, you can see that the monitor mix is routed to the headphones. The monitor mix follows the main mix, so anything you hear on line outs 1 and 2, you'll also hear on the headphones. Finally, here you can see that the 16A's line inputs and the inputs from both optical banks are routed to the host computer for recording into your DAW. The routing grid can be customized in the settings sidebar. To demonstrate this, I'll first collapse all source and destination banks using the collapse all triangles. The layout tab here at the top lets you display the destinations column on the left-handed side of the grid if you prefer. Source banks that you aren't using can be hidden. Same for destination banks. And finally, the Connections tab lets you set up AVB stream connections while working in the routing grid. These are the same settings as found in the Device tab, duplicated here for quick access. Now that we've gone over some basic routing, let's move on to the mixer, which has 64 input channels, plus a reverb bus, the 26 aux buses, the monitor mix, and the main mix. The 64 inputs feed the main mix. Here, you can see that the monitor mix is set to follow the main mix, although it can also follow the solo bus, reverb bus, or any of the aux mixes. In the main mix, the first 8 channel strips are stereo pairs coming from the host computer and your DAW software. Notice that the first fader for host out 1 and 2 is already up, so you'll hear it on the main outs and headphones. If you want to hear other host audio channels, bring up their faders as well. Here's a quick tip. Double-click the faders to automatically jump them down to -infinity or back up to 0. The next 16 channel strips are assigned to the 16 line inputs. If you want to hear a line input signal patched directly through the 16A hardware itself, without patching it through the DAW software, bring up its fader here. Just be sure to turn off audio patch through in your DAW so that the signal doesn't get doubled. After the line inputs, you'll see the reverb return channel for adding reverb to elements of your mix. The rest of the 64 channels are unassigned and available for any sources you'd like to include in the mix. The entire mix configuration, including all channels and buses, can be customized to fit your needs. You can even create and save different mix configurations using the 16A's device presets. Now, let's take a look at some of the other elements of the mixer. In the mix settings sidebar, there are several useful tabs. The Channels tab lets you hide channels that you're not using so that you can focus on the ones you are using. The same goes for the Buses tab. You can hide any buses that you aren't using. The Sections tab lets you show or hide sections of each channel strip. The Aux Buses tab lets you individually configure each aux bus as mono or stereo. There's also a setting for making the sends for each bus pre or post fader, meaning the channel fader. This setting applies globally to all sends for the bus. The On Faders tab lets you temporarily convert the faders in the channel strips into send faders for the chosen bus, providing a convenient way to route multiple channels to the bus. For example, here I'm routing mixer channels to the reverb bus for routing input signals to the 16A's built-in reverb. When a bus is chosen in the On Faders list, the bus channel strip pinned to the right side of the window here changes to the fader and channel strip for the chosen bus. Since I'm working with the reverb bus right now, I can use it to adjust the overall reverb level. Notice that the title bar displays the name of the reverb bus. To bring the mixer faders back to controlling input level, choose Main 1 and 2 in the On Faders list. The title bar also changes accordingly, as does the bus fader pinned to the right of the window. Finally, The TalkBack tab provides convenient access to the same TalkBack controls we covered earlier in the Home tab, so you can quickly access them while mixing. Now, let's take a look at an individual channel strip. At the top, you'll see the name of the source signal patched to the mixer channel in the Patchbay. In this example, line input 5 is the source for this mixer channel. Click the name to change it if you wish. To revert to the default source name, just delete the custom text. Below that is the track settings thumbnail, which displays basic track settings. Click it to access the track settings panel. Here, you'll see a fat channel strip on the left with all basic settings for the channel, such as the channel fader, pan slider, mute, solo, and other settings. The channel source list lets you choose any source from one of the 4 banks. If there are source-specific settings, they will be displayed here on the right. In this example, we can see the 20 dB digital boost and phase invert for the line input. These are the same controls as we saw earlier in the Inputs tab. Each channel also provides a high-pass filter here. While I'm in the track settings panel, I can still see mixer channels below. Click a channel to switch to its track settings. As you can see, the currently selected channel has a highlighted background. This makes it easy to adjust settings for any channel while mixing. Click here to close the track settings panel. The next item in the channel strip is the EQ thumbnail, which shows the current EQ curve, if any. Click it to access the EQ tab. Every channel and bus has this 4-band double precision EQ filter, which provides 4 bands of notch or shelf filtering. You can graphically adjust the settings or type in the specific values for each parameter. Next up in the channel strip is the Dynamics Processing thumbnail. Click it to access the channel's gate and compressor. Again, you can adjust parameters graphically, with the dials, or by typing numerically. Below the Dynamics thumbnail is the Sends thumbnail, which displays orange lines for any bus sends that the channel is being sent to. Click the thumbnail to access the send faders for the channel. All of the send faders for the channel are displayed across the top, along with a pan slider. As before, the mixer channels are displayed below so you can easily switch to a different channel and continue mixing as you adjust send levels. Note that all of the track settings panels can be accessed over here in the fat channel strip. There's one more channel settings panel that is unique to the reverb bus. Click it to access the reverb settings in the 16A. Here, I can choose between a small, medium, or large reverb, and control pre-delay, damping, decay, and width. Note also that the reverb bus also has its own compressor and 4-band EQ. Now that you're familiar with the mixer, how can you use it to create monitor mixes? Use the main mix to create a monitor mix that will be sent to lineouts 1 and 2 and your main studio monitors. From the factory, this mix will also be heard in the headphones, but it is easy to set up a different mix for phones. Earlier, we learned that the monitor mix feeds the headphone output. So, let's set up a separate mix for the monitor mix bus. First, let's choose a stereo aux bus and rename it Phones Mix. Now, let's make the monitor mix follow our new Phones Mix. Next, we can simply go to the Aux Mixing tab, choose the phone's mix and start mixing all 64 channels. The phone's mix feeds the monitor mix, and the monitor mix gets routed to the headphone output. But how could I set up additional monitor mixes, perhaps for additional band members during a recording session? The process is similar. First, choose a stereo aux bus and rename it. Next, visit the Patchbay to route that bus output to the 16A output pair that is feeding the headphones of the musician. Now, simply go to the Aux Mixing tab, choose the musician's aux mix, and start mixing. If the musician has an iPad on the same network as the computer that the 16A is connected to, they can control their own headphone mix by running the CueMix Pro app and using the Aux Mixing tab, just like we're doing here. You can create up to 13 stereo aux mixes for additional musicians or for any other purpose. Each mix has its own 4-band parametric EQ and compressor. As another reminder, when using CueMix Pro for hardware monitoring, be sure to turn off audio patch-through in your DAW software to avoid unwanted doubling of live input signals. In Performer Lite, choose Studio Menu, Audio Patch-through, Off. You should now be ready to use CueMix Pro with your 16A or other compatible Motu interface. For any questions, please consult the other videos in this series or your interface manual. Thanks for watching.